Salutations! Welcome to Loving the Language of Literacy. My name is Sophia Lee and welcome to my February 2015 reading wrap-up, aka the month where I actually got a life. You probably are wondering what I meant in my intro by I got a life this month. There is more to that because in the month of February I actually got a boyfriend. Yeah, that happened this month. I did a lot of prioritizing differently than what I normally do. I was also in a reading and blogging and just YouTube slump in general. And yeah, I know it is amazing that the introverted, shy Sophia, who spends most of her time on the internet and reading books, actually had someone to be her Valentine this year. Yeah, that totally happened. Anyways, let's get into the actual books I read. The first book of the month was a 5-star read, and that was Slammed by Miss Colleen Hoover, aka the Queen of New Adult. If you don't already know, I got into the new adult genre more in the month of January of 2015, and I just continued on. Surprisingly, I read not a single paranormal, fantasy, or dystopian book in the entire month of February. It was completely 100% contemporary, realistic, or something else along those lines. Anyways, moving on, I can't decide what I liked better between Hopeless and Slam because they were both so good and so emotionally heart-wrenching, but this book follows a girl named Meagan who, when her father dies unexpectedly, her mother packs her and her little brother up to move across the country to some northern state I'm currently forgetting. You know, that's me, Sophia, forgetting everything that she just read. She meets this boy next door, or more like man next door because he's 21, and they have an inexplicable romantic connection, but for some reason, which I will not say because that would be a spoiler, they cannot be together. So they spend the entire book, of course, trying to be together. Though, if you're thinking this is not your type of book, I just want you to know that this is more than a regular new adult novel. It had a lot of depth and wonderful writing. There was a lot of focus on relationship and dynamics between siblings as well as romantically. Meagan had to deal with loss and grief and just what happens in life. And there was also slam poetry. I had never watched a slam poem before, but believe me, after I read this book, I watched like 50 in a row. My productivity was not very good this month, but I am now officially in love with slam poetry, and I love the aspect it brought to Slammed. I only wish that somehow Colleen had done YouTube videos for the slam poems that both Meagan and Will and other characters performed because they were just amazing. The next book I read was my favorite of the month, and I have an 18-minute long book talk for it, and that is All the Bright Places by Jennifer Niven. Oh my god, I just gotta take a step back. This book, the feels, overwhelming, can't deal. This is a dual perspective book following a boy named Finch and a girl named Violet. Violet's sister passed away a few months ago and she's still dealing with the loss and feeling of grief. Meanwhile, Finch has always wanted to kill himself and he's really depressed. In the very first chapter, they meet at the top of a bell tower where Violet is contemplating committing suicide. And Finch is the one who saves her, but the entire school thinks that it's the opposite, that Violet saved Finch. They get paired together for various school projects and they somehow keep getting each other's ways, but it ultimately ends up being a romantic story about two people who have had very messed up lives trying to put together their broken pieces, and they're made whole by traveling the state of Indiana together, and it's really romantic and it's fun, but at the same time it's really deep and gut-wrenching and emotional. The next book I read was Losing Hope by Colleen Hoover also, and this is the second book in the sort of hopeless duology. This book follows Dean Holder's perspective, and it actually starts a year and a half before Hopeless does. It was extremely interesting to see Dean's perspective, but at the same time it got really tedious. I only gave it 3 out of 5 stars just because while it was completely original and as fresh as Colleen could make it, it was still the same story all over again, and I definitely could have skipped this one. The next book I read was The Walled City by Ryan Grodin, and oh my god, this book. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars, and my best friend Emma in real life, as well as my best Twitter friend Nath over at Codes and Rights, both loved this book and recommended it to me. I was going to read it someday, but they made me push it to the very top of my TBR, and I'm so glad they did. This book is told in 3 points of view by Dai, can't really pronounce it. He has a lot of secrets going on, and we don't really know his position in the story. There's also a girl named Mei, who is sadly in a brothel, and a girl named Jin who is disguising herself as a boy while just trying to stay alive. There are 3 stories intertwine and connect, and it is truly interesting to see all the different perspectives. Everyone says that it's a dystopian, a science fiction, a historical fiction even, but it's realistic because the Kowloon city actually exists. So, just setting you straight there. The next book I read this month is probably my least favorite book of the month, and that was Wait For You by Jaylin. This is my very first fully read Jennifer L. Armentrout or Jaylin book. She goes by either name, one for her new adult books and one for her young adult ones. I just didn't like it because it seemed extremely cliche and just regular new adult, and I did not get what I expected out from the synopsis. This follows a girl named Avery Morganson who has a very strict family, and she is in college. And one day she meets a boy named Cameron Hilton, who is a very rich, very swoon-worthy guy, and she knows that he's trouble when she meets him. But it turns out, of course, that he's not actually trouble, and they fall in love! Big surprise! That's why I said this was a cliche new adult book. It's about their relationship developing throughout the story. There's also this other plot underlying everything about Avery's past and why she wanted to escape and go to college around 2,000 miles away from where she actually grew up. But she gets all these random hate emails and phone calls and really weird voicemails, and just, she thinks she's being stalked. So there's that underlying mystery and the relationship between her and Cam. And average book. I gave it, I believe, 3 stars. It should have gotten 2. I don't know what I rated it now, but don't read it if you don't like new adults. The next book I read is one that I also have a review on my blog for. I was pretty good on reviews this month, and that is The Archive by Victoria Schwab. I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. I explained everything in my review of why. I love the premise, love the writing style. Plot was a bit weird at some times. I'm still going to read the sequel, and I will most definitely be reading another Victoria Schwab book this month. I then read the novella This Night So Dark, written by Amie Kaufman and Meagan Spooner. This connects This Shattered World and These Broken Stars, and it follows Lilac and Tarver. They're together, but Tarver is reminiscing one of his memories from the battlefield, and I'm not sure what it meant, but it supposedly connects the two. And it's on my TBR to read The Shattered World this month, so I'll tell you when I find out later. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. It was a pretty good novella. Nothing major, but I definitely liked the writing style, and it just seemed like a short continuation to These Broken Stars. The next book I read this month was More Than Comics by Elizabeth Briggs, which is the 2nd book in the Chasing the Dream series, and I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. I've been such a big fan of Elizabeth Briggs since June of 2014 when I read the very first book, which was More Than Music, and then back in December of 2014 again when I read the novella More Than Exes. Earlier this month I was complaining about Losing Hope as well as Wait For You, which were the 2 new adult books that were a bit average, not that good in my opinion. But Elizabeth is the master of really good quality new adult angst and romance, and she brings a whole other level to her stories by adding issues such as the need for diversity in literature. And this one was especially fun to read because it was set over a 4-day weekend at Comic-Con between the graphic novel illustrator as well as the graphic novel author falling in love, which was just so much fun to read about. The next book is one that has gotten pretty good reviews lately. It came out in January of 2015 and has been pretty hyped up since. My good friend Alex at the Books Buzz loved this book, and a lot of other people have. They've compared it to the Gallagher Girls, and that is The Conspiracy of Us by Maggie Hall. I only gave it 3 out of 5 stars. I did not enjoy it that much, to be honest. It was confusing, it was all over the place. This book follows Avery West, and she's moved around with her mom quite a lot over the years for unknown reasons. But one day when she's simply at prom trying to enjoy herself and have a good time, she gets pretty much attacked, which is very shocking for her. And this uncovers a secret that she is part of a family that is one of the 12 in the circle, and they apparently are this all-powerful group of families that control the economy, the governments, life as we know it, industry. She then travels all around the world trying to find clues as to the mystery that's going on during the book. People are trying to kill her, bad things are happening, and basically a hell of a lot of chaos ensues. There's a bit of romance going on as well, which I wasn't the biggest fan of, and I was overall just a bit confused during reading the entire book. The next book I read was Open Road Summer by Amie, which I of course gave 5 out of 5 stars to. In the month of January, I read my very first Amie book, which was The Start of Me and You, and I absolutely adored it. Oh my gosh, Amie is just the queen of young adult contemporary romance. Open Road Summer is technically a road trip book. This book follows Reagan O'Neill, who happens to be best friends with Delilah Montgomery, who is a famous country music star. They travel all around the United States on Lila's 24-city tour, experiencing new things, having fun together, and of course there is a boy involved. I seem to be saying that with every single book I read this month because, like I said, it was all contemporary. That's what you get when you read contemporary novels. She kind of gets involved with Matt Finch, who is another musician who is opening up for Lila Montgomery during the entire tour. And they can't really be together, but of course they want to be. And I know this sounds like an ordinary book, but as with any Amie novel, ordinary is the farthest you can get away from it because it's sweet, it's hilarious, it's romantic, it gives you all those feel-good feelings and you're just rooting for the characters so much. The second to last book I read this month was The Unfinished Life of Addison Stone, which was a roller coaster, let me just tell you. This is gorgeously, masterfully done multimedia book told by many different perspectives surrounding Addison Stone's mysterious death. It follows everyone who knew Addison Stone, from her brother to her mother to her best friend to her ex-boyfriend to her art dealer. She is an 18-year-old art prodigy and she is on top of the world until she mysteriously dies, and the entire story is basically just delving deeper and deeper into who she was, what drove her to maybe killing herself, maybe being murdered, because the moment she walked into a room she had this presence. And we got to know this throughout the entire book when there were all these little sketches and drawings and sculptures and photographs of supposedly her and her life. It was supposed to be done in a kind of non-fiction style, but it most definitely is fiction. And I gave it 4 out of 5 stars, mostly because of how much it just made me think and ponder, and just how much of a mind-blowing kind of book this was. I would definitely suggest it, maybe not so much for the plot and the writing style itself, but definitely for a more fun read. The last book I read this month, which I gave 4.5 out of 5 stars to, was I'll Meet You There by Heather Demetrios. I know this came out recently in January and it's been hyped up to no end. This is about a 17-year-old named Skylar Evans, and all she wants to do is get out of her rinky-dinky little town in Central California. She already has gotten into San Francisco University to study art, and all she's trying to do is survive her last summer in Creekview when she gets reunited with her not really friend, but a person she knows, who is Josh Mitchell, who used to go to her school and has just returned after his tour in the military. Through working at the same motel, they reconnect over the summer and they really develop a good friendship as well as a budding romance. But both of them have so many issues and have had such broken and just very full past. Through knowing each other, they really can just confide in each other, and their love hopefully prevails. I gave it a 4.5 out of 5 stars instead of the full 5 stars because the ending seemed a lot like Amie and Roger's Epic Detour, if you've read that, but just the way that contemporary books sometimes will leave you and it seems almost in the middle of a sentence like you really should have more to the story, but because it's contemporary they're allowed to do that and they don't have to tie up all the loose ends, but it really annoys the readers. Anyways, tell me in the comments below what you read this month. I would love to know. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you had a good time. Keep calm and read on. Goodbye!